Hello, I'm Sumit, founder of Future Net Zero. We are a website that produces content to help you cut your carbon footprint. And the Net Hero podcast is all about that, highlighting people doing amazing things to cut emissions, be that scientists, business people, inventors, or just common, ordinary people who are doing something to make a change. If you want to get involved, then email us. And we're looking for a sponsor for this amazing podcast. So if you'd like to know more, get in touch. On to this week's episode. I am pretty old, so I remember a musical which had the words "food, glorious food." I think it was Oliver, can't remember. But it's a famous thing, food. We're obsessed with it. We're obsessed with eating it if we're starving. We're obsessed with not eating it if we're massively fat, taking jabs against it. We're obsessed with where it comes from these days, how organic it is. But the one thing we don't seem to be obsessed about is how much we waste. In honesty, we waste a shed load. All of us do. I've been guilty of it. I'm sure you've been guilty of it. Whether we buy too much from the supermarkets or the markets, or whether you put it on your plate and then you go, God, I just can't finish it. And all that food has a massive impact on our lives. One thing you might not think about, you might think of the waste, but do you think about the carbon associated with it? Well, that's one of the things that really needs to be looked at, the food waste. And there's a company you may have heard of, been around a little while, called Too Good To Go, which has been trying to reduce some of that. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the UK MD, Sophie Truman. Sophie, hello.
Hi, good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Too Good To Go, for people who don't know it, what exactly is it?
So, Too Good To Go is a certified B Corp social impact company. And we have a very simple aim, which is to connect users like you and I to partner stores to rescue unsold food to stop it from going to waste. So we have a very simple app, and through that, we welcome anyone to come and help fight food waste with us.
And the app works how? Explain it to our viewers and listeners.
So our solution is very simple. The app is free for anyone to download,
Right.
and through it you can buy surprise bags,
Ha!
which are essentially bags like a lucky dip bag
Okay, right.
of surplus food that would have otherwise gone to waste. And the beauty of the tech solution is it works for all different types of businesses. So whether you're an independent, small, family-run bakery,
Yeah.
all the way through to a large retailer. Any store can work with Too Good To Go, and through the consumers that use the app, they're able to buy these goodie bags, these surprise bags of unsold food.
And that's the point, isn't it? That it's a surprise. Because obviously, at the end of the day, a shop doesn't know what it's got left. So I can't go, actually, I'd like a cheeseburger and I'd like this or whatever. I assume there's other. So is it mainly things like kind of, the sandwiches and that sort of stuff? Or you said it can apply with any retailer. Could I get hot food on it as well?
Yeah, so the opportunities are endless, to be honest. So there's a surprise element to it, but also on the app profile, you'll get a description of what you're likely to receive.
Okay.
So, for example, you can get roast dinners on the
Wow.
platform through going to some of our local carveries. You can get sandwiches, pastries, you can get sushi, you can get hot food, cold food. It all depends on the type of food that business sells. So have a look on the app, scroll through, and you'll be able to find a whole range of different cuisines to try.
But this is not like a kind of, the Just Eats and all those where you order your food. What you're saying is for the consumer, they're going to waste this, have this at a discount.
Exactly. So you when you purchase a bag on our app, it will tell you exactly what time to go and collect that. That's
Ah,
normally a short collection window, depending on when that store is closing or when they're changing the items potentially on the hot hold in store. So you go to the store, and the bag will either be ready for you or packed upon arrival for you to take home and enjoy.
I mean, I have even tried it once. I think I don't know what I got. I can't remember actually. I think my little one had it was some sort of chocolate thing, and certain bakers that we all know. Anyway, but it's one of those funny things where you kind of think, okay, maybe once in a while you do it, but I wanted to get into kind of why this matters. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I said it in the intro that we waste food. Now, I know you guys have got some stats on this, and I think we said before we started recording, 10% you say of all greenhouse gas emissions is food waste. Could you explain how? I mean, that sounds enormous.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, one of the biggest challenges facing our society today is climate change and
Yeah,
tackling. And the reason our business exists is because food waste is a huge contributor to that. And actually, a lot of people don't know that. We might think
yeah,
about, flying or driving as big
correct.
contributors, but
Absolutely.
actually, when we look at food waste and the whole production process of it, from growing the food on the field to then the transportation, the water that's needed, the refrigeration, if you take into
Mm,
account all of the carbon emissions from
understood.
that, it then accounts to 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. And that's actually larger than the entirety of the aviation industry.
A
So it
lot
shouldn't be
bigger. Yeah,
ignored. It
yeah.
really shouldn't be ignored.
Why is it something that I mean, you go back probably now 3 generations. People didn't have much to eat post-war globally, and my family are from India, and they grew up not eating much at all. When you go to those same countries now, plethora of fast food, right? It's completely
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
Sub-Saharan Africa, you go there, and people think, oh, they're starving. They're not. There's loads of fast food restaurants, and of course, in this country, I'm old enough to remember the first McDonald's opening, and it's 50 odd years. And that changed everything. Do you think a lot of what's happened in terms of global food waste is because our diets have changed? And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but we kind of got more used to eating out.
Yeah. I think there's a few trends that have not helped this
Mm,
situation. The first one I think is the sheer abundance of choice we now have as
yeah,
consumers. And obviously, huge technological advances such as refrigeration, if you go back even further, have helped make that possible. But I can go down my road into a supermarket and get items that are not in season at
of
any time.
course.
I can buy, avocado, root,
Avocados is the
and
one.
exactly whenever I want, and that's
Yeah.
my expectation now, as
Mm,
a consumer. And we also, we want that choice, and we're disappointed, and we'll go somewhere else if we don't have that choice. And so I think whilst that's an incredible thing, in terms of having a more diverse diet and being able to try different cuisines, it also means that we have become far more picky, I think, versus before. And so yeah, I believe this choice is a big factor into that. And then I think secondly, especially in the younger
yeah.
generations, we expect everything on demand, and this
Yes.
personalization, this delivery within moments, to me, is now again the norm. And so I think we've lost that connection to the value of food and where it comes from. And I think back to my grandma, actually, and she was in kind of World War I generation, and when I was growing up, nothing would be wasted. It would be
Nah, there
repurposed
you go.
again, and
Yeah.
we'd be going, "Oh, Granny, not this same apple like redone 3 ways." But it was that, I think we've lost that connection, and
Yes.
a lot of my friends that have young children, some of them, I think, do they even know where it comes from? And so I think education is really important for.
And do you think that thing you just said there, which is great about, your grandmother reusing and stuff, the value of food, um, has that gone then? In the sense that you can pick up a meal for £2, right?
Mm.
Meal deals are, less than a fiver. You can get hot food for like 99p. So no one seems to have a thing that actually these things have a value because it's such a small amount. And so if I don't want to eat my whole burger, I throw it away. And I have seen that. And I'm not blaming young kids. I've seen it with adults as well, grown up people, people of all ages. But that to me has certainly changed in my lifetime. And do you think that is something that's contributed to the fact that we now are overproducing and then wasting?
I think it's definitely played a part for sure. And I also think it's easy just to say, oh, well, it's only half a burger. It's only
Mm.
half a packet of spinach at the back of my fridge.
Yeah, which has gone
When that's
moldy. Yeah.
happening, that's the classic example. But when that's happening in every single household, and when retailers are rejecting crops, for ridiculous reasons as well on a different scale, it
Yeah.
all adds up. So I think it's this kind of brush under the carpet mentality of, it's just like you say, it's just this sandwich. It's, what that doesn't matter. But when that's happening, the scale of the amount of people we have on the planet now, it's making a massive difference. So I think that's hard to connect because, like you say, you're just thinking, oh, it's only this, but the cumulative effect of that is huge.
Some would blame retailers, and it's been said, supermarkets. I don't buy into the whole thing. They're all evil. They do a lot for a lot of people, but there are some things around, kind of, buy one get one free, all of that sort of stuff, and discounts and things like that. Now, I know we've had supermarkets on before talking about how they're trying to look at waste and the whole scenario. I've spoken to farmers, and they're trying to cut down, but in the end, it's you and me, isn't it? It's up to the consumer.
Yeah, I think you touch on a really interesting point, which is actually when we look at the whole sort of supply chain of food or the life of food, the vast majority of the waste is coming from households, the
Yeah.
staggering majority. So you are right, it is down to us as consumers to plan more accordingly, because we have the scale to make the difference. I'm not saying that means it's not on large retailers or farmers. Like, we all need to play a part for sure. But if you look at where you can make the biggest difference, it is what's going on at the individual and household level.
Um, you were working, I think, in the fashion industry before, is that right?
Not the fashion industry, but the beauty industry. So I
Right.
I spent just under 6 years at L'Oreal before moving over to Too Good To Go. So the fast moving consumer goods was
Exactly. And
very
that's the
much.
point. Food is a fast-moving consumer good now, isn't it, really?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could argue it's got one of the shortest shelf lives. Like, some of our partners, I'm thinking of the sushi brands that we
Yeah,
work with, they have such a small window due to
of
their
course.
stringent health and safety requirements
Yeah.
that product can actually be on shelf before it has to get thrown away. So it's a really small window. I mean, that's an extreme example, but that's where Too Good To Go can be a really great tool to help solve a problem for businesses that have to turn over stock really quickly.
Why did you want to make a move? Maybe it was a career choice or whatever, but it seems like, in certain sector, which is known for kind of, it's all about fashion and beauty and all of that, and it's little bit trans, and you've suddenly got to something very different.
Yeah.
What drove you to that change?
I was actually fortunate enough to spend some time in the Philippines. It was on a short sabbatical with
Yeah.
L'Oreal, and I was investigating ocean plastics at the time and the impact that
Okay.
the
Yeah.
beauty industry was having on that particular theme. And in all honesty, it was when I was there, and I actually remember it because I kind of call it my light bulb moment, but I had
Hmm.
this sack of ocean plastic that I'd just done a dive, and we'd been retrieving
Yeah.
all of this plastic. And I just thought, I want to channel all this passion and energy I have into, making a difference into my career. And so I wanted to then find a company that had a really strong purpose that got me excited, was a business model that I felt worked, and critically was helping solve a bigger problem than just trying to, grow in revenue. And that's what really propelled me to search for the next opportunity. And I'd never heard of Too Good To Go back in the time. This is in 2019.
Yeah.
When I did meet the previous country manager at the time, she really inspired me because I just thought, this is such a no-brainer. I wanted to try my hand in the tech space, and the business model really worked. And I think when you can get those two hand in hand, a company that has a really, a virtuous model that
Yeah.
actually makes sense, whilst at the same time, the more you grow, the more you're helping contribute to a greater good. That's what social impact is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It ticked a lot of boxes for me, and that's a trend that I'm not unique in that. We're seeing many people now wanting to align not only their consumer choices but their own career paths to companies that are driving a great business but also giving back to the planet, right? This is really interesting.
And that, that is the fundamental part of what we do at Future Net Zero. I believe people should make a profit, and the way that you, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you say that the app works. The retailer puts their goods on, and you take a small percentage for putting me as the consumer in touch, and that's
Yeah.
how you make revenue. How do you estimate you've made any difference? Because you've got some figures. I'd just like to explore how you can say, oh, we've avoided this much kind of food waste, because I could be very cynical, Sophie, as a journalist. And so, yeah, but I bought the thing from where Greg's or whoever, and I only ate one bit of it anyway, and I threw the rest. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It is quite tricky to say that we did eat all of the stuff that we may have bought, but you must have some way of working out whether you think you've actually avoided, or is that kind of very tricky for you guys to do? You've definitely, someone's made the purchase. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean they haven't wasted the food. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, well, first of all, it's always, I think, human nature to when there's what appears to me a really good model, we instantly want to try and say, well, that can't be working, right?
Yeah.
And so I think from the stats point of view, we've
Yeah.
actually in the UK just celebrated 45 million bags being purchased, and we
Wow.
have done quite extensive studies to understand exactly that. Are we just passing on the problem,
Yes, I
or
was going to
are
say.
people buying that? And actually, from our research, we show that the majority of our customers are from multiple occupancy households, so they're
Right.
tending to be able to share that food, and over 80% of the bag on average is being consumed. So
Oh,
I
wow. Okay.
really take that as a positive sign, because I think that does really make a difference. Globally, again, these numbers seem really high, but and that's because they are, but we've saved over 330 million bags of food. If you start
Wow.
thinking about the number of items of food, then that's obviously something. And maybe what's more tangible is also a lot of the retailers we work with here in the UK, we work with them on what their food waste reductions are. So a lot of them will have, big net zero
Yes.
plans.
Yes.
Recently, Aldi, who are one of our partners, actually hit their food waste goals early through their work with us. So, that's
Right.
a real tangible example of where we can
Yeah.
say we've helped a large brand actually get to those targets. Because food, it's a very complex model. We've got small time windows.
We do.
You've got to balance lots of things, and the whole nature of surplus is it's unpredictable. I'm calling from London today, and the weather over the past 2 days, we've had 23 degrees on Friday, and I was out in a t-shirt and shorts
And
for
then it's been
today,
raining.
torrential
Correct.
rain and 15 degrees. That affects food sales as well.
Of
So there's
course it
so
does.
much unpredictability.
I'm miserable. Let's get a cake. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I hope that answers your
No, no,
question.
I get it, and I think I think you're doing a brilliant job. What I'm interested to find is, you're clearly working with a lot of companies. I think it's uh, is it 100,000 businesses you're working with now? Is that right? I don't know
Yeah,
if that's a different.
160,000,
Right.
160,000
Are they
across.
different businesses, or just branches you're talking about?
Yeah, so that's individual
Right.
stores that we're
Fantastic.
working with.
From
Yeah,
from very big ones like the big supermarket you've chain talked about, to, like you say, a little corner shop or a little
exactly.
bakery.
Yeah.
What do they say? So forget the big ones, right? Because the big ones, as you said, got net zero targets, and they go, "Oh, this is all very good." What does a small cafe, maybe two people who work there, and they've got some food at the end of the day? What are they saying to you guys when it comes to kind of what you're doing for them?
So I think one of the main things that we hear from independent
Yeah.
businesses like that is how much of a footfall driver Too Good To Go is, which is
Ah,
another, there's, yes, we're trying to save food waste, but for small businesses, getting awareness that their
absolutely.
business is there
Yeah.
is key. So, we've got we will globally 100 million people have registered with Too Good To Go. So if you think about even just, we can look at how many eyeballs, how many people have viewed your store profile per day. And then we also can survey people to say, have you shopped at this store before?
Yes.
And a lot of the time, we're hearing independent stores say, I'm now getting to know customers that have never been in before. And if they try something and they like it, they tend to come back. So that's really great. I think it also works from a flexibility point of view, because a small store might some days have not enough
Yeah.
to make a bag, other days they might
Correct.
do. But it's a great way to get access to new customers. And that's one of the main pieces of feedback that we hear. And also, in businesses where it's sometimes people have all of their personal money invested in it, margins are super tight, being able
Of
to also
course.
have this safety net
Yeah.
That's a word I hear a lot from the team is really valuable for them.
Um, the new government has got in, and it's been going a little while. We're in the sort of, when we're recording this, we're in conference season. It's put net zero at the head of it, but mainly around energy and stuff. I haven't seen that much about what they've said around kind of food. They've talked about housing, they've talked about power and stuff like that. Now, but there is a charity called RAP, which has been looking at this sort of stuff for a long time. Um, from what I understand, you've been part of a sort of open letter to government. What do you want government to do around this food waste scenario?
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where, as I said, and you agreed, it's kind of our fault as consumers, because if we didn't want to consume all the time, they wouldn't make that much. But then again, could government legislate to say, you can only make this much, or it's a very tricky one, isn't it? Because the demand side of this kind of, the ultimate fast moving goods, as you say, if you interfere and say you can only make these many sushi wraps because the rest will get wasted, well, that ain't right, because the business say, hang on, I could sell more. So what
Yeah.
do you want from government?
So I think there's two key things that I'd really like to see from government. The first is actually investing in education, to make food waste actually part of the curriculum for children. So they're
Okay.
educated on where food comes from, the value of it. And actually we're starting from, the beginning of, or the future of society, and educating them around that. Like, I think that's really important, and not just children, but education across all levels. And then from a legislation point of view, I think it's also, we've seen that and what the open letter was really trying to talk around was mandatory food waste reporting, so that actually you can't brush under the carpet what's being wasted, and so that we can more look towards solutions to help save that. We have that in other countries. For example, France is one where large retailers, like, again, there's legislation that they can't throw away certain amounts, which then forces them to look at redistribution, whether that be through tools like Too Good To Go, whether that be through increased charity networks or just having, tighter inventory control. We do see that where there is correct legislation, it can also help. But for me, it's those two things. It's like you say, it's not just about, okay, put a new law in place and it will all be
Yeah.
solved. We have
Yeah.
to also, educate society more, which is what I am striving to try and do as well, and as are everyone that works at Too Good To Go.
Well, you're doing a very good job of it, that's for sure. What have you done to change your life around food?
Well, I use Too Good To Go personally.
Okay, right, fine.
That's I actually
Do you get a
so
staff discount, Sophie, this time?
we get 12 free vouchers a year, so one a month,
Not bad.
which we
Okay.
can go and use. But
Right.
of course, I use Too Good To Go. But there's a couple of things. So
But I'm
I
just to get to, a cheeky
yeah
question, but have you stopped buying more than you used to? Do you know what I mean? Like days gone by.
yeah.
Is that bag of spinach rotting in your fridge right now, Sophie?
It's definitely not, because
Good.
I pride myself on not wasting food. My friends and family will tell you, whenever I go around their house, the first thing I do is open their fridge and start looking.
God.
I'm head of fridge management in a lot of households I ever live in, and so I
Oh
think
God, they don't want to invite you to dinner parties,
no,
do they?
they don't really. And even if at dinner parties, I'm not afraid to say, are you going to keep that? If not, I'll take that. But no, and I think also, on a serious point, one just really simple tip, which
Hmm.
I think a lot of people forget, is the freezer is your friend. Like,
Yeah,
you
it's
can,
true.
food that you don't have, whether that, and even I've got bags of spinach in my freezer that then I'll use in stews or smoothies. Like, really utilize that incredible technology, because that locks in the food for you to use at a future time. And I think,
Yeah,
so many people think, oh, I can't freeze that. I can't. Pretty much everything you can freeze. Milk you can freeze.
yeah.
Slices of lemon, and then I put them in, a drink or a cocktail on the weekend.
Oi, oi.
So that, that's, yes, I plan more for sure.
Sure.
But I also think, just, being savvy with things like that can mean you can eat it another time.
No, I agree with you, and I've certainly tried to cut down our food waste. I think the last thing to say is a lot of businesses are listening to this, and we used to do events where we had hot food, and we stopped. The reason because exactly what you talked about earlier. At the end of the day, we had loads of hot food, and we said, "Can we give it away to people on the streets or whatever?" They said, "No, we're not allowed to. We have to
Yeah.
throw it." And I think what would your tip be to some of the businesses here? And it's not to knock them and say they shouldn't do events with nice food and all that, but they should think about this, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I think it's, being stricter on ensuring RSVPing and not over catering, and also reducing the stigma of allowing people to take food away.
Yeah.
I think what we tend to do in the office is on a Friday, it's open, the fridge is open house, right? And anyone can take anything. And so I think there's still a lot of shame around asking in a restaurant, can I take that home in a
Mm,
bag? So just being open about that. And then one final point, maybe just to make, is date labels is a really interesting topic, and a lot of items have a best before label, not a use by. And actually using your senses to understand, okay, this bag of carrots, this milk might say it's best before the 23rd of September, but it's probably absolutely fine for a week, even longer if it's
you're right.
correctly. So I would also, yes, obviously where it's certain categories such as, meat and fish, where you've got
Health
strong
reasons. Yeah.
health reasons, but for the best before, for fruit and veg, for bakery goods, for milk, really use your senses, because so many of I see go, oh, it's expired, and it's like, no, it's
Mm.
not expired. And I think that's what we've lost a bit. So I would also encourage people to really, do that as well.
Give it a good sniff. That's always the best
Exactly.
one.
Unusual
Sophie,
treatment.
it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much. Check out the app if you haven't seen it before. Too Good to Go. I've used it. It's very good. They're doing some good stuff. And tell me your thoughts, please, audience, on food waste. What are you doing? Have you changed your mind about how much you're using and hopefully reduced how much you're wasting? If you want to be on the podcast, get in touch. Nethero at futurenetzero.com. Sophie, thanks again for your time today. Much appreciated.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.
You've just heard the Net Hero podcast from futurenetzero.com. Join us as we help you find ways to cut your carbon footprint as we head towards net zero. Subscribe and follow us on social media. futurenetzero.com. Better business, better planet.